Welcome to another Counselor Soapbox video. Today we're going to look at the drug Ecstasy, MDMA, also known as Molly, and some related methylated-amphetamines. Ecstasy is an unusual chemical. It has both stimulant and perception-altering characteristics, sometimes called hallucinogens. Sometimes this drug is called an empathogen or an actogen. It is a Schedule I drug in the United States and is not to be prescribed by any medical doctor. For more on schedules, see the Counselor Soapbox video number 3 about drugs in the USA. We're going to also look at some related compounds, MDA and MDE, and street varieties of these drugs may contain almost anything. The effects of ecstasy, as with so many other drugs, are largely dose dependent. The effects at a typical dose are an increase in blood pressure, an increase in heart rate, elevated body temperature, which can't be reduced by drinking water, feelings of energy and alertness, similar to the stimulant drugs. It also suppresses appetite. The effects of ecstasy at high doses are quite different. They include jitteriness, teeth clenching or grinding, and use has resulted in a number of deaths. Physical activity while under the influence increases the risk. Ecstasy pharmacodynamics. Ecstasy is usually taken orally, can be pills or capsules. Powder can sometimes be snorted. Most is absorbed in the gastrointestinal tract when taken orally. Peak concentrations in the bloodstream occur at about 1 hour after initial ingestion, and the effects can last from 3 to 6 hours. Ecstasy produces two significant effects on the body and brain. It is a stimulant like amphetamine, resulting in hyperactivity, the fight or flight responses, heart rate increase, blood pressure increase. It also has hallucinogen-like effects in which the senses feel as if they are tuned up, and it distorts time and the perception of time. Some other effects of ecstasy are a decrease in aggression, feelings of happiness and friendliness, and more sexuality. These also can result in a delay or inability to achieve orgasm. Tolerance builds with repeated use. Ecstasy's effect on the brain is to increase neurotransmitter levels. It increases dopamine, norepinephrine, sometimes known as noradrenaline, serotonin, which is dumped in massive amounts, and it raises the brain's internal temperature. Ecstasy or MDMA is known to have toxic effects. At 2 to 4 times a normal dose, we see significant toxicity. Of course, this brings into question how much is a normal dose. The effects of toxicity go beyond jitteriness, teeth clenching, hunger which is suppressed, dry mouth, cramps, nausea. Temperature increase can result in muscle breakdown and kidney failure. Other toxic effects of ecstasy include heart attacks, strokes, deaths. These are more common from the oral use of the powdered form. Some deaths have occurred from drinking large amounts of water, diluting the blood, but not being able to lower the blood temperature. Some people report positive results from taking ecstasy in the short run, but in the longer term, there have been significant psychiatric problems. Depression occurs frequently as the level drops, the down feelings. There are also feelings of irritability, aggression during withdrawal, panic attacks with repeat use, hallucinations that go beyond what the user is comfortable with. It can result in paranoia, psychotic symptoms, and persistent anxiety and impaired memory. Is ecstasy a neurotoxin? The short answer is yes. Drugs which release both dopamine and serotonin, that includes meth, are neurotoxins. They cause the endings of the nerve cells to be damaged and die. This results in reduced ability to make and use serotonin and the pruning of nerve endings, altering connections between nerve cells. Related to ecstasy are substitute drugs, bath salts, and some newer piperazine drugs, which we'll talk about elsewhere. Ecstasy is part of a group of compounds referred to as methylated amphetamines. That includes MDMA, which is ecstasy, and Molly, which is a shortened name for molecule. Many people believe they are getting better quality ecstasy by purchasing it in that form. Researchers who have purchased the drug on the street and analyzed it find that many samples, both of the pill form and the powdered form of Molly or ecstasy, contain little or no MDMA, but in fact are methamphetamines and some other hallucinogens such as LSD mixed together. There are dozens of other related drugs, and these are often mixtures of drugs. All of the methylated amphetamines seem to produce some visual effects, some stimulant amphetamine-like effects, sometimes without the visual effects. All of these compounds act on the dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin systems. There are many reports of adverse effects as a result of taking ecstasy, principal among them brain damage. There have been deaths, and animal research has implicated the drug in long-term brain damage. We'll talk in a moment about the cooking of rat brains that are caused by methylated amphetamines. Because of these negative adverse events, in 1985, ecstasy, MDMA, was moved to a Schedule I status, meaning no doctor in the United States is allowed to prescribe ecstasy. Some other information about methylated amphetamines, including ecstasy. Route of administration, typically orally in powder or pill form, can be injected, and there can be rapid intranasal use from snorting. It's absorbed readily, and the duration of action is typically 6 to 8 hours. There's increased serotonin and dopamine for several hours, followed by below normal levels. Physical effects: increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, pupil dilation, muscle tension, teeth grinding, which is why so many ecstasy users make use of the oversized pacifiers, an increase in body temperature, appetite suppression. Repeated use can result in excessive weight loss, and insomnia. More on the effects of methylated amphetamines, principally ecstasy. Binge use is common. This is typically happening during raves or parties when in one night people will use multiple doses. The after effects of these binges are drowsiness, muscle pain, depression, sometimes paranoia, and an increase in anxiety. Stacking or multiple doses is common and creates high doses. This increases the risk because part of a second dose is taken before part of the original dose has been metabolized. Cumulatively, the dosage in the bloodstream increases. There's serious risks of death, and even at low doses in first-time users. Toxicity, reports of toxic reaction and death, Dehydration occurs, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, muscle breakdown, kidney failure, strokes, seizures, and heart attacks. Use of stimulant drugs, particularly ecstasy, MDMA, result in feelings of being hot. Many people try to compensate by drinking water. Research on rat models has indicated that drinking water rather than reducing the heat makes dehydration worse. The problem is that MDMA is a vasoconstrictor. The small vessels close to the skin become smaller, carry less blood, and are less able to dissipate heat. In rats, the brain temperature rises to dangerous levels. We know in humans a great deal of the calories burned each day, some estimates say 20% or more, are consumed in the brain. With constriction of the blood flow, the temperature in the brain rises rapidly, and the brain temperature can reach dangerous levels. Drinking more water doesn't help because the blood flow into the brain and through the skin area is restricted, and so the heat cannot go anywhere. Lots of water just reduces the sodium and salt levels in the blood, diluting the blood, but not removing any heat. Again, it's worth noting that in 2 separate research projects where samples of ecstasy or MDMA, or Molly for that matter, were collected, purchased on the street, and analyzed, they contained no ecstasy and often are full of added chemicals, things like methamphetamine or other hallucinogens. With all drug use, there can be residual effects from long-term use. With ecstasy, those residual effects seem more significant than some other drugs. The long-term damage to certain brain structures, neurotoxins, killing of the endings on nerve cells and altering the functioning of the brain, can happen from a single high dose, or small doses over several days can do the same damage. Effects, according to research reports, can persist for as long as 7 years, possibly longer. It's not that the brain can't repair itself, but that is difficult, and some structures may not repair themselves adequately. Heavy users frequently develop sleep problems, depressed mood, memory impairment, and cognitive defects. It's also noteworthy that users have more psychopathology than non-users. The question still unresolved is, does taking ecstasy result in causing psychopathology, or is it that people who have mental health and mental illness problems are drawn to attempting to cope by using these kinds of drugs? In either case, further use of ecstasy and related compounds, the methylated-amphetamines, make the symptoms of mental illness worse. Thanks for watching another Counselor Soapbox video. What's ahead? More drug education videos, many about specific drugs. Also, some mental health and wellness videos. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the like button, which is directly below this. Comments are always appreciated. And to receive new videos in this series, please subscribe to the Counselor Soapbox video channel. Thanks for watching the Counselor Soapbox video channel. For more information on this and related issues, please visit the Counselorssoapbox.com blog, where you'll find over 1,500 texts, articles on mental health, substance abuse, and having a happy life. The David Joel Miller fiction and nonfiction books are now available on a wide variety of ebook sellers platforms. The photos here are all courtesy of Pixabay and Wikimedia and are licensed under the CC0 Creative Commons free for commercial use, no attribution required license. Thanks again for watching.